I had a question I've been meaning to ask you, and I'm not just saying this because Tyler O'Neill just lit it up the other night. But do you think of all the, this is a competitive camp and all that. Do you think that the guys that are actually competing in the WBC can either increase their standing with the Cardinals or maybe lose a little bit of value to the Cardinals based on how they're performing in the WBC? Do you think it moves anything at all?
Bernie, my first thought was, out of sight, out of mind, that it could hurt these guys. But, I mean, as we all know, you turn on your computer every day and Lars Nootbaar is taking over the world. He has all of Japan doing the pepper grinder. Tyler O'Neill was on base 6 times and 6 at-bats the other day. Ali Marmol said it all factors in. They get all the data from these games as they would from spring training games. They see Lars Nootbaar's exit velocity. They see Tyler O'Neill hit a ball 108 miles an hour the other day. So, the word is that all this is being factored in, that all of it matters. My first thought was, wow, you're going to take off and you're going to let Jordan Walker run this camp. It's going to hurt some of these guys. But, when Tyler's hitting the ball the way he did and then when Nootbaar's hitting the ball the way he's done, I think the Cardinals know what they have in that. They've got to figure out how to get 4 outfielders in 3 spots, how to make that work.
Yeah, or maybe even 5 if you factor in the DH or some other positions they can play. Donovan's part of the equation, not a regular starter in the outfield. But what I want to know is there probably will not be room for Yepez and Burleson both. Does Yepez have an advantage, a slight advantage, because he did show last year he can hit for power in the majors? And number 2, no one's saying that he's a Gold Glover, but I don't have to tell you, John Denton, that Ali Marmol really values versatility and flexibility, and Yepez can be moved around defensively, so he can sort of perform services that beyond the offense. He gives the manager another piece to put on the board and play.
Yeah, definitely, Bernie. I mean, he can move around. First base is probably where you want to see him. I'm not sure I want to see him in the outfield in a big game. He's had a couple of faux pas already in spring training, where the ball hit his glove and bounced out. But Yepez's trump card is that 2-run home run that he hit in the playoff game. That team didn't hit the ball much at all in the playoffs, but Yepez was the one guy who hit the ball deep, put him on the board. That home run, it matters a lot. And, he came back ready, and there's nobody on this team that has more confidence when they step in the box than Juan Yepez. Like, he thinks he's getting the hit every single time. And, I think that matters. I think that gives him an edge up. They love Burleson's bat control. They love that he puts balls in play. They do think he swings at too many pitches. They would like to see him do more damage. He did hit a ball off the wall the other day against Washington on Sunday. But I think in that head-to-head, as much as they would like to see a left-hander like Burleson in their lineup, I think Yepez has the edge there because, like I said, that home run in the playoffs carries a lot of weight in his favor.
I want to tell our listeners that they should subscribe to John Denton's Cardinals-based newsletter at MLB.com. He does a newsletter once a week. It's always thorough. It's always detailed. It's always informative. And sometimes he goes a little bit off the so-called beaten path to do kind of a player profile, a character profile, a look at who a Cardinal is, what he's been through, what he can be, that kind of thing. So you can sign up for that. And, of course, it's free, and it arrives in your email box once a week. You don't have to go looking for it. John, I'm sorry, I should know this, but because I get the newsletter, it's great. What's the best way for them to sign up for it?
Just go to MLB.com and you can click your favorite team. And like I said, it's free. It'll show up. I think it goes out to a couple million people, Bernie. Basically, anybody who's ever bought a ticket and their email, they've submitted their email. I think a lot of people get it, and we had great reaction last season. And like you said, it comes out once a week now, but once the season starts, it'll be out twice a week. And it's been able to kind of show these guys away from the field. I did a Q&A last year with a lot of guys, and I asked, what's your hidden talent? And Tyler O'Neill can play the classical piano. Tommy Edman can do a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds, quirky stuff like that, stuff that you would never know. And so it's given us kind of an avenue to tell, stuff about these guys away from the baseball field.
Yeah, and if you go to MLB.com, you can just look for morning lineup, and that's what you can sign up for John's newsletter or any other teams and their beat writers' newsletter that strikes your fancy. But there's a lot of really, really good stuff available. And John took a look at the outfield situation in his newsletter that he wrote a couple days ago, so always appreciate that. Speaking of the outfield, let's get to some of the stuff I know people want to hear about. So it sounds like everything's good with Jordan Walker. Kind of no, don't freak out. Everything will be fine. Is that your read of it with that shoulder?
Yeah. But he came back in. He slid in head first to second base on Saturday. He stayed down for almost 30 seconds. I was shocked that no one came out of the dugout to check on him, and he stayed in the game. He stayed in the game for a half inning, and the Cardinals decided to pull him out. And eventually the pain went away, and he's fine. He did gave the Cardinals a scare. But what's come out of this is Ali Marmol has said, "Hey, we don't want you sliding head first, big boy. Those hands and shoulders of his are very valuable. They want to see him going in feet first," and that's kind of been a discussion on Sunday. Is they're talking about stop sliding head first. He's talked to Mason Wynn about it. Which one's faster, feet or head? So the Cardinals would like to see him not put those fingers and knuckles and wrists and shoulders in jeopardy with head first slides. He's really impressed people throughout this camp with his speed. Some of the numbers he's hit. Just blows your mind when you consider that he's 6'5" and he's 250. He's running almost as fast as Jordan Wynn. The only thing they want to see him change is when you get there, put those spikes in instead of your fingers.
John Denton with us. You can follow him on Twitter at John Denton 55. I always want to throw an extra 5 in there, so I don't know why, but
yeah.
But anyway, John's very informative on Twitter as well. All right, let me ask you about. Look, if Jordan, I looked this morning. Jordan Walker leads spring training among qualifying hitters with slugging percentage, OPS, and he's pretty much near the top of the leaderboard in every other category. And I'm going to assume there won't be a physical issue. So let's just use that as the premise. How close do you think he is to having it made, or do you think he already does have it made? Is there anything, just from a performance standpoint, that could change that outlook that he'll be a Cardinal on March 30th at Busch Stadium on opening day?
Bernie, unless he just bombs the next 2 weeks, I think this kid's talent is just too undeniable. Like, his physical gifts are too undeniable. Skip Schumacher, a guy, Cardinal fans know well, bench coach here last year. He said a couple of weeks ago when Jordan Walker hit a 430-foot home run, it came off the bat at 109 miles an hour. He said that Fernando Tatis was the best prospect he'd ever seen come along in baseball, and that was until he met Jordan Walker. And that changed his, from that point on, it changed that Jordan Walker was the best prospect he'd seen come along. I mean, this kid's talent is just too undeniable. And, the way he handles success, the way he's handled failure, the way he's come in and not been blown away by Major League pitching at all, I think that's been the biggest eye-opener is that, this hasn't fazed him one bit. He's faced the minor league guys. He faced Garrett Cole. He sent, turned around a 97-mile-an-hour fastball from Garrett Cole. I just think, there's no need to deny this kid's talent. I know you have enough outfielders out there. They have 3 guys who could start tomorrow in the outfield. But this kid is a difference maker. This is a kid who keeps you from getting eliminated in the first round. This is a kid who can make you a serious contender. I just think, if he keeps going at the rate he's playing now, there's no way you can keep him off the opening day roster come March 30th.
And a very popular subject in terms of Cardinals and prospects is Mason Wynn. In fact, if you all go to MLB.com, you'll see that yesterday John Denton at John Denton 555 on Twitter, he wrote a really nice piece about Mason Wynn and the kind of spring he's having. And, of course, John, I don't have to tell you, that's led to a lot of our great Cardinals fans wondering when can we expect to see him playing for the Cardinals? How soon? Is there any way that it happens early in the season? What is your read on that situation? Are they going to be cautious with Mason Wynn, give him more time, or would they? Is there anything he can do, and he's done a lot, to kind of change their timetable of what they expect for his arrival time?
Yeah, Bertie, Jordan Walker came in with high expectations, and he's met them. But Mason Wynn may have made up more ground than anybody. He may have changed more opinions about him than anybody. They knew he had the 100-mile-an-hour arm. They knew he was a former pitcher. They knew he had a flashy glove. They had no clue the kid could hit like this. I mean, he had an opposite field home run the other night. He may be 180 pounds dripping wet. The day after Jordan Walker hits a 430-foot home run, Mason Wynn hits a 435-foot home run. He's hitting balls back up the middle. He's far more advanced at the plate than they ever realized. And, if you look at his combined numbers from last season, I think the kid had 36 doubles. He had 9 triples. He knows how to square a baseball up. And, Jordan Walker casts a shadow over a lot of people in this camp. And, there's some of us have kind of been asking, wait a minute, are we missing the boat here? Is Mason Wynn maybe the best prospect of all? It may be not 1 and 2. It may be 1 and 1A, because those two guys are so talented. They're best friends. They're each other's number one hype man. And I don't think Mason will start the season because, Paul DeYoung's going to be on this roster. Paul's played better. He's got a $9 million contract. Tommy Edmonds coming back. Brendan Donovan's going to be there. But, if somebody stumbles, if somebody goes down to an injury, I don't think they'll be afraid to bring up Mason Wynn because he's so much further along at the plate than they ever realized coming into this camp.
John, I want to run this past you. The only reason I offer this is because I know the Cardinals are historically reluctant to, if a player is not getting it done and there's some time left on his contract, they don't want to eat the contract. They really prefer for the guy to turn around and contribute and just have it end that way. And, of course, I'm talking about Paul DeYoung. And I'm not trying to chase Paul DeYoung off. It's just a reality. We're all still waiting. The only reason I think Wynn could come up sooner than later, but it's not all that soon, I hearken back to Johnny Peralta in his 4th year out of a 4-year deal. He just collapsed. I mean, he offensively, defensively, you name it. So John Mozeliak stepped up, and I know the date because I looked it up today because I wanted to mention it. It was June 13th of 2017, and they just ate the remainder of his contract, which was about $6 million for that year, and they released him. So, I mean, all I'm saying is I could see a scenario if they want to give Mason Wynn more time, being down at AAA, kind of round everything off. And he's tearing it up. I could see a mid-June scenario where it would make sense to make a big decision with him and also maybe Paul DeYoung. And listen, man, I hope Paul DeYoung can start cracking. I'm not rooting against the guy. I'm just trying to be pragmatic about this.
Paul's looked a lot better this spring with his new stance. He's not striding as much. The thing that's killed him is he had this arm fatigue thing. It's awful timing. It's really been it's opened an opportunity for Mason Wynn. And, you give these young kids a chance. You never know what's going to happen. Like we all know the Wally Pipp story, with, what happened there. Mason Wynn is not overwhelmed by this. You think, okay, 20 years old, he's going to get in and have some struggles. It's going to be too big for him. That's not the case. Like this kid's ready, maybe he's not as physically as imposing as Jordan Walker, but man, he's 5'11" and 180 pounds, and he has the bravado of somebody 6'5". He's a loud guy. He's a confident guy, and none of this is too big for him. Like he's ready for the major leagues right now. I don't think he'll start on the roster, but I could totally see a June scenario like you mentioned because they're more convinced than ever that Mason Wynn may be as ready as Jordan Walker right now.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting just to think of them both, no matter when they arrive in the majors. John, one more thing, if I could. Will Leach and I do a thing called Seeing Red, a podcast, and we're back into the every Monday we record one as we did today. And Will, one of the things we talked about, Will Leach brought up right away, said, look, what is Lars Nootbaar, would he be the ideal? Or he didn't say that. He just said, does it make sense to bat Lars Nootbaar at leadoff? And I said, well, I don't think the manager, first of all, is going to have like a locked-in permanent leadoff hitter. I mean, it depends on who's pitching and all the other side, all that. But Nootbaar, like Brendan Donovan, actually have shown the ability to be able to hit left-handed pitching, even though they bat left. We know Nootbaar's a high on-base power type guy that could bring a lot to the leadoff hole. But what the way it is now, subject to change, what do you think about that idea? And what do you think in general about the way the leadoff position will be handled by the manager?
Yeah, I originally my thinking was that Brendan Donovan would be the perfect leadoff hitter. A guy who hit he was 384 on base percentage, 394 last season, which was unbelievable. But the way Nootbaar works counts, the way he hits lefties, like you said, I think his walk rate was second in baseball last year over the second half. He's a guy who, it's rare to see a super high exit velocity, but he also has a super high walk rate. Usually those are the Barry Bonds and the Aaron Judges and guys like that. But Nootbaar is able to combine both of those. If we learned anything last season, it's that Oli Marmol is going to play the percentages. He's going to line up the pitches with the hitter. But I could totally see either one of those guys leading off. And, Nootbaar just has such an energy about him, Bernie. I mean, like the smile is magnetic, and his energy is so positive, and players rally around him. And I made the comparison the other day. There's a certain player that I won't name who talks a lot in the locker room, and guys are kind of bark at him, and they can't stand him. It seems like sometimes. And then Nootbaar talks a lot, and everybody in there loves him. Everybody gravitates to him, and I think him leading off the game. He led off in the playoffs. He actually performed really well. I think he's maybe a natural fit at that. He's not your typical 1980s Vince Coleman or Ozzie Smith type leadoff hitter, but he's a guy who's going to work deep in counts. He's going to punish mistakes, and he just has an energy that can set the tone for a team from the leadoff spot. So if I had to pick right now going into leadoff, the leadoff hitter on March 30th against the Blue Jays, I think it would be Lars Nootbaar.
Well, John, not that it matters, but I agree with you. I really do. And you're right about him setting the tone. And that's kind of a secondary quality or value, in addition to just performance. I mean, the really good leadoff hitters sort of unsettle the other side. I mean, they're confident, they're brash, they got an edge about them. They won't give in to the pitcher, and their teammates are fired up. I mean, that's kind of a fun thing to think about, him doing that. He is highly capable of it, and it's not like and he is highly capable of handling himself well against lefty pitchers well. But it's going to be fun to see how this all plays out, and it's amazing how many choices Oli Marmol has all over the field, really. Yep, no doubt about it. They have some tough decisions to make with this roster. John Mozeliak really has his work cut out. It's more than just do you add Jordan Walker to the roster. They've got like you said, a leadoff hitter decision to make. They've got a bullpen decision to make. You get to 13 in a hurry when you start counting up pitchers that they want to take north with them. It's going to be interesting. Zach Thompson's going to get a start tomorrow. He's a guy who's went from throwing 93, 94 to 97, 98 this past season, and it's going to be interesting to see him get a start tomorrow. So, like I said, they have a lot of tough decisions to make coming up, and John Mozeliak is going to have to decide which 26 players he takes north with him. John Denton, thank you so much for your time, as always. I look forward to our visit every week, and you have a wonderful week, sir, and we'll do this again next week. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Bernie. Appreciate it.
That's our friend John Denton, MLB.com. Follow him on Twitter at John Denton 555. Now I'm looking at my clock, and it's about 6:20 in the evening down in Florida. So I hope I wasn't keeping John from eating some victuals or something, So at dinner time down in Jupiter, and the way all those folks down there work, it was a day off, at least in terms of games. No game for the Cardinals today, but Derek Gould's the one that always discovers new places to eat down in Jupiter. Yeah, he's kind of like the advanced scout on that stuff. So I wonder what he's been able to come up with this year. I don't know how Derek Gould has time to eat, but that's another discussion. By the way, John Denton was absolutely right. Nootbaar last year or last fall, and I know we're only talking about 2 games against the Phillies, both losses, but there were only 2 hitters who stood out in that dreadful series where the Cardinals scored 2 runs in 18 innings. Yepes, obviously, for hitting the go-ahead home run, give the Cardinals a 2-0 lead in Game 1, a game that they blew with the Ryan Helsley and frankly, the Ali Marmol fiasco during that 9th inning episode. The second guy who distinguished himself in that series was Lars Nootbaar. He batted leadoff. He went against the top 2 Phillies starters, Game 1 and Game 2. He had, in the 2 games, he had 8 plate appearances. He got on base 4 times. He had 3 hits and a walk. He had a double. He scored, I don't think he scored a run because he didn't have a chance to. But he was fearless. He was confident. He took on the Phillies' best 2 guys from their rotation, and he individually won his battles against them. Now, I'm always small sample guy, be careful. But when you see a guy, a relatively inexperienced major league player, when you see him lead off with everything on the line in what was going to be a short series one way or the other, and he comes through like that and looks like he had been batting leadoff in postseason games for 5 years or something. I mean, it was very, very impressive because most of the other guys, no names, but you know who I'm talking about because I've talked about it a lot. A lot of the other guys just kind of shriveled up a little bit. You know, this kid was absolutely, and he's not a kid, but you know what I mean, absolutely fearless. So I want more of that. And there's no doubt in my mind he can be a leadoff hitter. No doubt in my mind. His numbers over the second half of the season when he batted leadoff, he drew more walks than he had strikeouts. I mean, who does that anymore in this game, right? Who does that? And he obviously can hit for power. The manager of Japan was smart enough to bat him leadoff, and he's been tearing it up. I'm talking about Nootbaar. And it's been fun to watch, but he can bat leadoff. I'm still not sure, and maybe Jim Hewer, if you got an opinion on this, if you don't, that's all right. I'm still not sure why there's a reluctance to embrace Lars Nootbaar to do this job or to do that or be this. I don't understand it. I recently saw an online argument going on where 2 guys were going at it, and one of the guys' strong position, and he was backed up by others, is that Nootbaar is like a quadruple A player. He's not a kind of major league player you build around. He's kind of a fringe guy, and I'm like, my God, did they invent some kind of new drug that will completely destroy your brain? What the hell are you watching, man? Nootbaar is a terrific player, and he is an energy source, and he does set the tone. So embrace Nootbaar, people. I don't know. Again, I don't understand this little cult out there that just refuses to accept this is one talented individual who brings an edge and an intelligence to what he does on the field, and his energy is just fantastic. So I don't know. But the performance has been fantastic as well. I don't understand the mystery of how the brain works with some of these people.
I'm a fan as well, as you know, and I've become more of a fan as I've watched him play more. I think, and this is just a thought here, I think part of this not believing in Nootbaar is because he was not the, quote, golden prospect coming up. It was, it's Nootbaar. Yeah. And he's got the funny name, so he's not really a player. He's just got the name. He's a cartoon character kind of guy.
Right.
You know, that kind of feel.
I think you're right.
And nobody's given him the true things he deserves on his ability. Hey, he deserves Watch him play. Something that John Denton was talking about with him in the interview you had, how infectious he is and how he can go in the locker room there with the Cardinals and just, everybody loves the guy. And even as he said it, I thought, hold on a minute. Think about what he's accomplishing right now over there in Japan. And I joked I said with you, and I said something yesterday with somebody who was asking me about Nootbaar. I was like, gee whiz, what's the pepper grinder in Japan going on? There is, if you look at their roster, there's an Ito, a Matsui, a Miyagi, a Takahashi, a Dagawa, all these names. And then there's Nootbaar. And who's the guy that's leading the team over there right now?
Yeah.
It's Nootbaar.
They're crazy about him.
He walked in there, and he's become this infectious guy. He's been a leader. That's not an easy thing to go over into a different culture and just go, hey, my mom's Japanese, and accept me. But yet he's been accepted over there. I think that's another aspect to him that I think is a quality that we probably can't appreciate enough. And when he gets back over here, I think we'll see it again in that locker room where everybody likes the kid, and he just comes over and plays, and he kind of livens the place up. That's a great quality to have.
And the progression is there. I mean, my goodness, just go to Baseball Reference, go to his page. And, they brought him up as a rookie in 2021. And the first time that he was brought up, I mean, he was fine, but he didn't necessarily do anything extraordinary or special. But he held his own. But you remember they brought him up again the second time around, and he was, really, really fantastic. And he finished his rookie season. Let me get this in front of me. It's right here. He finished his rookie season with a 103 OPS plus, which means he's slightly above average. But if you piecemeal that out and look at that over the final, 2.5, maybe 3 months, his numbers were really, really good. Now, he had to deal with an injury last spring, and he got off to a slow start. He just wasn't settled in. But once he went down to Memphis to get more at-bats, which he needed, and once he came up and he was basically in the lineup to stay from July till the end of the season, I mean, he was about 26% above average offensively, OPS plus. But for the second half of the season, or if you just go from the All-Star break to the end, this guy was one of the top hitters in the game. And his performance based on OPS plus over the second half of the season was 50%, 49 or 50% above the league average offensively. So my point is, he's tracking, as you track him in his career progression, even with a stumble or two, which, by the way, is that unusual? Guy breaking into the major leagues? He has made rapid progress, and his trajectory is up and up and up and up. So I think it's safe to believe in him because I think he's the real deal, and I think he has a very unusual set of skills. Left-handed hitter who can hit lefty pitchers, a guy that can walk more than he strikes out, very low strikeout rate, very high walk rate. He hits for power. He works counts. He knows how to get on base. He runs the bases like a demon. He's got a great arm in a corner outfield spot. So what's not to like? I mean,
yeah.
What's not to love, actually? So, but it's just like this guy I was making fun of from ESPN with his refusal for a few weeks to even acknowledge that St. Louis City SC is good, or to at least rate them based on how they've played. He finally gave in, and I give him credit. I do. So whatever resistors are out there, and it may, listen, man, it may only be like 5 out of 100 people. Why don't you enjoy this player? Why don't you enjoy what he does for your baseball team? Have fun. It's okay. Have some fun.
Fun is
Find
good.
the joy in performance. It's all right.
Yes.
It's okay.